Hi, I'm Mackenzie.
Hey, I'm Denise, and welcome to the podcast from Rundown to Renewed.
Today we're going to be continuing our conversation about the fruit of the Spirit. And this is found in Galatians 5:22 and 23. And it reads, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control. Against such things there is no law."
Love it. So, today we're going to be talking about joy. And before we jump into this, we thought it would be good to note the differences between joy and happiness, because a lot of us pursue happiness when what we really desire is joy. So, happiness is more of an emotion.
Mhm.
It is going to be based on your circumstances, things that are going on around you, whether you experience it or not. Whereas joy is in your soul. Like
Yeah.
it's more of a soul characteristic. It's from the inside out. So it's something that you can experience regardless of what your situation might look like, right? So gladness produces joy. It changes the attitude of our heart.
Yeah. I think that that's so important to understand. Another thing is toxic positivity versus joy.
It's a big one.
So, a lot of times we can just look at the bright side of things while refusing to actually acknowledge the things that are unsavory to think about. And we're just avoiding pain in those situations. So, we
Mhm.
have happiness, we have toxic positivity, and we have joy.
Mhm.
And we want to experience true joy.
Yes, absolutely. And, I think joy can be found in the midst of suffering.
Mm,
And, when we were kind of talking through this, that was something that I experienced when I went through my divorce. A big thing that it kind of like joy kind of came back to me, even in the midst of a lot of grief and suffering and pain.
mm,
This one memory came up where, well, first and foremost, I should say that a lot of my joy kind of came back to me through gratitude, through looking at what I had left in my life. And the first Christmas that we were still separated, we were just separated, and the girls and I, my kids, we went to Florida for Christmas to be with my family. My entire family went down for, we surprised my grandpa for his 80th birthday, which was amazing. And I remember feeling so worn out,
mhm.
you know, traveling. We drove down to Florida. And I've done this drive before. We did it a lot growing up. That's where we would vacation growing up, and we never flew. We would always drive. So I was used to it, but I wasn't used to being the only person driving.
Right.
And I mean, thankfully, my parents were, I was driving behind them. So it wasn't like I was alone, but I was alone in the fact that I'm the only adult in the car. I'm the only one solving any problems. I'm the only one filling up water bottles and passing out snacks and doing all these things. And I remember when we first got to Florida, we were on kind of a back road, and it was beautiful and sunny, which is such a delight in the middle of December. And we rolled down the windows and we were singing music at the top of our lungs and having such a good time. And I remember in that moment, it's like, okay, this is probably going to be awful and really, really hard, but keep coming back to moments like this.
Mm.
Remember things like this, because this is where your joy really comes from. It comes from these deep moments of gratitude and recognizing what you have left.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of effort because our brains are just wired to
Yes.
remember the negative. It's so much
Yes.
easier to hold on to those versus those moments of gratitude where you're like, yes, all of this matters.
Yes.
I'm going to hold on to this good part.
And when you're suffering too, it's you just want it to be over.
Mm,
We don't want to suffer. And so it is easy to look for like happiness. Well, what's going to make
right.
me feel better? What's going to
Hmm.
make me feel better?
Yeah.
Or going to toxic positivity and just being like, well, it's really not that bad.
There's always a silver
There's
lining.
always a silver lining. And it's like, no, this is horrendous
Yeah.
and really difficult
Yeah.
and not of my choosing.
Hmm.
And yet this is my life now.
Hmm.
So yes, that is. It is definitely, it takes a lot of effort in your suffering for sure. But that joy can exist
Yeah.
for you for sure.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the strongest that you feel joy is in the midst of suffering. Because,
Hmm.
like, for me, I got pregnant before I was married. So I had, all of the shame, guilt,
Yeah.
all of this stuff on me, and you can't hide a pregnant belly, right?
Mm.
So then you have that from the world also. And all of that is temporary. All of the suffering is temporary. And had I not gone through all of that, had I not gotten pregnant and gone through that suffering, quote unquote, I would not have deepened or even started a real relationship with God,
Yeah.
because it was in those moments that I was like, I am doing everything wrong.
Mhm.
So, Lord, help me.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the most honest prayers and one of it's it's such an important prayer. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't you don't have to go to God. We just wrapped up our series on dangerous prayers
Hmm.
and sometimes we don't have to pray a bunch of words.
Right.
Sometimes just the simple help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that many times.
Yeah.
And it's because it's all you have
Yep.
and that's okay.
So, let's look at some women in the Bible. Again, we're going through this fruitful women of the Bible, and we're going to talk about Elizabeth from Luke 1. And Elizabeth married Zachariah, and they tried to conceive for a long time. And that's what we know about them. Zachariah was a priest, so he went to the temple, and there was an hour of incense where the priest would go into the temple and pray. And the Bible tells us that a whole multitude of the people were praying outside at the hour of incense. So all of
Mm.
these people were praying all at the same time. And in that moment, an angel appeared to Zachariah and said that they would have a baby and his name would be John. And Zachariah was in disbelief because they were old. They
Yeah.
were like,
They were past childbearing years for
yeah.
sure.
So he had disbelief, and the angel was like, all right, you have disbelief, you're muted. And he could not talk until all of these things that the angel had said were going to happen came to pass.
Mm.
So he leaves the temple and can't speak now. And Elizabeth ends up getting pregnant.
Yeah. So she gets pregnant, which is this miracle, right?
Yeah.
And so you can only imagine if you're trying to conceive for decades, you think you're past childbearing years, and it's all you just kind of accept it. I'm
Right.
sure that to a degree she probably grieved
Yeah.
not being able to have children, and then this miracle comes about, and the amount of joy I'm sure she had, right? So she has the baby, right? And oh, wait, did we miss something?
She's
She's still
pregnant.
pregnant.
Yeah.
I skipped ahead. Wait, I knew I missed something. I was looking at different notes. Okay. So she gets pregnant and she is pregnant at the same time that Mary is pregnant with Jesus.
Mm,
So Mary comes to visit, and when Elizabeth saw Mary, the baby leapt in her womb. Like it was like this like leap for joy like in her belly, right? And Mary told Elizabeth that Mary was carrying the Messiah, right? So in this moment, I think, you know, Elizabeth demonstrates this joy for Mary. Like the
yeah.
baby's like if the baby like that's crazy
Yeah.
to me. That's really amazing to me. But if this baby of hers is experiencing joy, that just like radiates from her as well. And she trusted her experience with what she felt
Mm,
inside of her. And she also welcomed Mary into her home for about 3 months. She stayed. And in all of this, she never gets trapped in comparison or
mm,
jealousy,
yeah.
right? Her attitude illustrates true, authentic joy, and it doesn't have to stay hidden. It's always directed back to God and what He is capable of doing.
Yeah.
I love that
I
so much.
yeah, I just keep thinking like she could have been so sour and been
Yes.
like, "Oh, I have this baby, but it's not the Messiah,
It's not Jesus.
you know.
Yeah.
And but no, she knew, and she felt like there would be a connection between their
hmm
babies. And there
hmm
was.
There was a major connection between their babies.
Yeah.
And what a gift that she got to have. Like God,
Right.
it's she's in this waiting season, which ends up becoming a suffering season because
Right.
she's not getting what she so deeply desires, what her and
Mhm.
her husband so deeply desire, only, to wait multiple decades to not just have a baby, but to have John the Baptist. Like
Right.
that's her baby. Like
Yeah.
look at what God did
Yeah.
through her suffering.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So in the story, Elizabeth has her baby, and Zachariah is still mute, still can't speak. And and 8 days later, the family and neighbors come to circumcise this baby boy. And what's weird to them is that this baby still doesn't have a name. And they
Mm,
thought that they would call him Zachariah after his father. And Elizabeth says, no, his name is going to be John. And they looked at Zachariah with confusion and they're like, what is happening?
mhm.
Like, do you agree with this? And he wrote out, his name is John. And in that moment, he could now talk again because everything the angel had said happened at that moment.
Yeah. Could you imagine like being Elizabeth and not hearing your husband speak for 8 months and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you have this new baby and now he can speak like, oh my gosh, the
Yeah.
joy. Like that they probably all were experiencing.
I also wonder, like, did they communicate about the name John? The Bible doesn't tell us, but I
Yeah,
feel like
like
they wouldn't have. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know.
Eh,
That's part of the mystery. Something
Yeah,
we can ask when we get to heaven.
right. But it's just like if they had no communication, verbal communication, that his name would be John. And in that moment, they're like, yeah, his name's John.
Yeah, that's a God ordained moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. The story of Elizabeth, something that's been kind of stirring in me is the importance of having joy for what other people have, but like the things that they have that I want but I don't have yet.
Mm,
That's been something God's really been kind of working on me with me on because and this Elizabeth's story is so prevalent to that because it's like we said, she could have been so jealous and so petty. And instead, she's just radiating joy. She's welcoming Mary into her home. She's showing hospitality and love. There's
right.
that ripple effect that we talked about last
Hmm.
week. And, for me, so I've shared, I'm single and I'm a single mom. And I'm in a space where I feel like, okay, like maybe someday I could be in a relationship again, which is exciting. And I'm seeing it happen for other like single mom friends of mine. And my unfortunately, my initial reaction is like, dang it. But then God checked me on that so fast.
Yeah.
He did not even let me sit in that for more than a minute because it was like, Denise, this is so good for her. Like this
Yeah.
is so and then, I'm talking to one of my friends the other day, one of my single mom friends who just started dating and just hearing her talk about this relationship that she's in now is just it's so fun. Like it's
Yeah.
so exciting and to get the fact that she's sharing her joy with me gives me the opportunity to be joyful with her. And
Mhm.
I would never not want that.
Right.
Like it's such a gift to be able to share in people's sorrows and in their joys. And
Right.
we have shared a lot of sorrows together and a lot of pain. And now getting to experience this joy. Because isn't that what you want for you too? Like when you're
Right.
experiencing really good things, you want people to be catty. You want them to be
Right.
you want them to be happy for you. So that's something that God is really teaching me. Not that I'm like catty or petty, but I just think that that initial like gut reaction
Yeah.
can be, oh, I wish I had.
Yeah.
I think that's very human,
Mhm.
and God's just kind of checking me on that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that So I think about my birthdays. Okay. I love birthdays. I think they
They're
are
so
so
fun.
fun. They
hmm
should be celebrated. Some people disagree with that, but I am one that likes to go all out for birthdays.
hmm
And when you become a mom, and you have a husband that works like every single one of your birthdays, um, you kind of have these expectations that never happen, right? And so God worked on that through me, and I lessened my expectations, and it savored the moments. But if I just compare, my birthday was just June 5th, and comparing last year's birthday to this year's birthday, same story. My husband's working. I have two beautiful children at home who decide to act like jerks to each other all day, and
Mhm.
it is so stressful. Okay. So last year, um, it was just like we have a conversation of why are we treating each other like this, and all of that, but I was still frustrated
Yeah.
because I'm like, it's my birthday.
Come on. It's my one day.
So I was still kind of selfish in that, and desired more. And this year for my birthday, same story. My husband worked, my kids decided to act like jerks to each other, and we didn't have plans. So I sent them to their rooms, and I went to each person and was like, tell me all your thoughts about your sibling. Went to the other one, act for supporting reasons of why they believe these things.
Mm.
We came back together, and I just went to the Bible and brought up a story and diagrammed it out for them and talked about all of these thoughts. And I was like, is this something that you want to continue to form roots into beliefs, or is this something that we need to dig out and get rid of? And in order to dig out and get rid of, we have to replace those thoughts
Right.
with God's word, something that's true, because these thoughts are like, my sibling doesn't want me to be their
Mm.
sibling, or they are mean, or all of these things that aren't true. And so we have to replace that. So it was interesting though, because as I'm doing this, I'm not frustrated. I'm actually like smiling a little bit because I have the time to sit with my children and do this important work.
Yeah. Huge.
And it was just, and I was confused that day. I was like, why am I not upset? Why am I not frustrated? What is happening? And it was just seeing like how God takes you and is able to transform you, but it's the joy. And it was funny because Denise and I were talking about this, and I was like, I was really questioning why I am the way that I am now, and
Yeah.
it's because of God's joy.
Yeah.
I know that this suffering through sibling rivalry is temporary, and if I take my position seriously as a mother and take the time to sit and work through these things, I know I will see the fruit
Yeah.
at some point. So it was just interesting looking back on those two birthdays and seeing, oh, that is
Mm.
God's joy right there.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing.
yeah,
And like what a gift to them too.
I hope so.
I hope so. Well, in the moment, it's not
It
great.
wasn't
And
very
again,
great.
well, and like when you think of like the fruit of the spirit, like it's it's not, you don't necessarily see like the reaping of it
Right.
right
Yep.
away. Like when you're suffering, you might not be like the most joyous, but you can have it. And
Yeah.
it's in those moments where you choose. It's a lot of times it's truly a choice.
Right.
And then when you continually are choosing, that's when you start to see the fruit in your own life. Yeah. So the other woman that's referenced in this book that we absolutely love this story too is the woman at the well.
Mm.
And so if you're familiar with the story, she's a Samaritan woman. She goes to the well to get water. And so, first of all, she's Samaritan, and Jews and Samaritans do not talk to each other,
Mm.
right? She's a woman, so she's a lower class citizen at the time. She's been married and divorced 5 times. So she's just genuinely the social outcast.
Mhm.
100%. She's got all the cards are really truly stacked against her, and she's living with a man that she's not married with, which
Right.
is a huge no-no in that time, right? Jesus still goes to her. He does not shy away from meeting with her in this public place.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you feel like an outcast or beyond redemption, if you have so much shame or guilt, like God's grace could never penetrate you again, this is a story that I want you to truly listen to.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So she's she's obviously reluctant to talking to Jesus,
Mm,
right? Because it's like, what's this man gonna do? Is he
right.
gonna judge me? Is he gonna like berate me? What's gonna happen? But what's beautiful is her curiosity doesn't prevent her from communicating with him,
Mm,
which I think is really, really cool. And Jesus reveals all of these things to her, right? He's asking, well, where's your husband? And she's like, what, it's like, well, wait, you don't have one, but you've been married. Like he's revealing all of these facts about her
mm,
to her, not to condemn her, but to show her that he knows her, right?
mm,
He is the Messiah. He bridges the gap and
mm.
he's breaking down all of these barriers that
Yeah.
she has through joy.
Yes.
So
And
good.
I think that's a great story to know that you're never too far gone. Jesus can use you at any stage of your life.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, this woman at the well, I wish we knew her name.
I know. It's amazing that like I mean, you say woman at the well, and if you've read scripture, you know exactly
Yeah.
what we're talking about, but we do not know her name at
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
So in this moment, Jesus reveals himself to her,
Mhm.
and she is filled with so much joy. She went to the well with this water tin to collect water, and she runs back to her city and left the water jug, right? So
Mm.
the whole reason why she came, she left it there to go back into her city of condemning people that think that she's worthless and everything. And she tells them about Jesus.
So good.
I think that is so amazing.
I have so much joy just listening to that
Yeah.
story. Yeah. Which this then makes her, this was a new fact to me. This was a new realization, was that she's one of the first messengers in the Bible to spread the good news of Jesus. Like a Samaritan woman, an outcast,
Yeah.
and that to me, that shows Jesus's heart.
Right.
I just, oh my gosh, I can't even. It's so good.
Yeah. So her joy that she found with Jesus and went and told everybody about saved lives.
Yeah.
Her joy saved lives.
It's such a reminder, like to just act without hesitation,
Mm,
for the betterment of those around us.
yeah.
Just as like Jesus acted here.
Mm,
He's sharing all these things with her to show this is who I am. I can better your life. Like when you know me, when you surrender, when you have a relationship with, like it's just yeah,
yeah.
what he did there showed her his grace
Mhm.
and his love and his mercy and his love for her. And that completely compelled her and transformed her life. And I think a lot of times when we feel shame about things we've done, who we've become, whatever that looks like, it's very easy to almost just have this like hard shell
Yeah.
around your heart.
Yeah.
It's like a barrier,
Mhm.
right? You could say it's a wall.
Right.
And so many of us are walking around with these barriers up,
Yeah.
just like she did,
Yeah.
because it's easier and we feel this need to protect ourselves. Well, you don't know what I've done. You don't Jesus could never. Like
Yeah.
I am too far gone. And this is such a story that just if nothing else, we hope that it lets some light in for you,
Mhm.
because it's this woman had everything going against her and Jesus sought her out.
Right.
He didn't stumble upon her. He was
No.
very strategically loving in meeting with her, and I have chills. Like
I know.
I just this is the stuff that when you're a Christian for a while you can almost forget.
Yeah.
Not because you just do, I think.
Hmm.
Um but I mean, his love is just so massive, and he wants to have a relationship with all of us. And so for those of us that have that relationship, like I would challenge you, like, where is your joy? Like, do people know
Mm.
that you have joy
Yeah.
because of Jesus? And even in, when you're going through the hard things, it's like we shared. I mean, you can still have joy. It's
Right.
it's more of a grit thing
Mm.
in the suffering seasons, but it's there, it's a choice, and God will happily work in and through you so that you can radiate that joy regardless of what your situation looks like.
Yeah. And when we have joy in these moments of suffering, it causes a ripple effect just like love does when we
Yeah.
share that joy with other people.
Yeah.
Like you might be able to think of someone when we talk about joy. I'm thinking of someone right now who always has joy and is a joy to be around. And I
Mhm.
love listening to her and call her for advice and everything. She's a joy.
Yeah.
Her joy overflows out of her and causes me to want to be more joyful. So it has that ripple effect,
Yeah. And isn't that the goal? Like,
right?
isn't that what you want? You
Yeah.
want more. We need more joy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We don't need toxic positivity. We don't need your silver linings.
No.
We need joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue this conversation over in our Facebook community page. We have some reflecting questions for you today. Number one, do you have more joy, happiness, or toxic positivity in your life?
Mm.
And again, when you evaluate yourself and look at these things, none of it is to make you feel bad or point fingers or build shame. These are self reflecting questions that will reveal your heart and where God wants to work in you. The second question is, how do you experience joy in the midst of suffering? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And do you ever feel like you're too far gone? And if so, I have a little exercise for you to do. One, identify that thought and take it captive. God tells us to take every thought captive.
Mhm.
And a lot of these negative thoughts, like I'm too far gone, let's use that for an example, is not from the Lord. That is a lie. And go to the Bible. What does the Lord say about you? Because he tells you that you were fearfully and wonderfully made.
Mhm.
He tells you you're far more precious than rubies.
Mhm.
He tells you what else?
Oh my gosh. On the spot.
There's so many
Yeah, there
different things he
yes,
says about us. You were created for a reason.
yeah,
Like there was no mistake about you.
never. Mm-mm.
So replace whatever you're saying with God's word
Yes.
and pray that over you. Maybe it's really hard for you to actually believe that because you've believed that you are too far gone for so long.
Mm,
Pray this over you for God to transform your mind to actually believe this.
yeah. And I like just total side note, this one person like keeps coming to mind, and I've seen some of the things that she's shared on social media, and I know this is exactly how she feels.
Mm.
And I don't even know if she has interest in, like, I think she's been deeply hurt by religion
Hmm.
or church or whatever the case might be. I'm not entirely sure of her history. I just know that she, just based on things that she has shared, it's there's just no interest in really seeking, because she feels that way, because she feels like I've got all this mess going on here
Mm.
and I don't need this
Right.
because this never helped me anyway. And that is really heartbreaking. And those are not thoughts from God at all. And this
Mm.
goes, we talked about affirmations a while ago. We talked about biblical affirmations in one of our other episodes in the past. And this taking every thought captive speaks directly to that, those biblical affirmations. What
Hmm.
are those things? So when you have these thoughts of I'm too far gone, your shame starts to lie to you, you've got all these negative things going, go back to those written down affirmations about what God says about you, and shift your focus
Yeah.
to those things.
Yeah. You will see your mind transformed and it
Yes.
will be beautiful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So next week, we will move on to our next characteristic in fruit of the spirit and fruit of the spirit.
Yes,
So
stay tuned.
be ready for next Wednesday.
Yes.
And if you are feeling run down,
There's space for you at our table.